So some people might think they don't have to come to 240. Although I said in my notice it was 2.
Yeah. I saw you.
Yeah. So what should I do?
Called it.
Well,
Wait a little bit.
Cynthia's here. I'm here.
Well, Kimberly's coming. I know she's coming at 2.
Okay,
So she for sure will be here.
we'll just wait a few minutes.
There might be a train.
That,
I don't think so. The whole building would be
Not
vibrating. if-
not
Yeah.
rocking and rolling.
There she is.
Right, make sure-
Little mother.
For my 4 hours. Thank you.
But you guys had a good view of the fireworks last night.
We did. On our deck is probably my favorite spot. Plus, you don't have to deal with the traffic of leaving the.
Yeah, that'd be
How
so
close are
nice.
you to where they set them off?
We're on 44th Avenue South, and they do them right at Newland Park or South Middle School.
Yeah.
We're in the Kingsview neighborhood and it sounded like there was like a firing range in our backyard.
2 kids sleeping and really.
I know.
I know.
Yeah.
Boom, boom,
And they
boom.
could sleep right.
They did.
Mark took a late nap, and so he stayed up and watched us, but it was 11 o'clock, and then like I was getting ready for bed, and more started going off. I'm like, somebody was like, "What is this? We are done. We'll find you." I wake you up at 6 a.m. when my kids get up.
Or Matt Sarabito on that street.
So he's like, whatever. So she was like.
Vito. And Sarah, usually have hockey nets out. They're close to, what is that, South 20th Street?
Oh, yeah. So they're
He always had.
the other end. We're closer to like, yeah.
Okay, all right.
There's like 4 houses and all that other.
And then at the end, they all go off crazy. And then she goes,
They're the second house in from South 20th.
You
Okay,
know,
yeah,
I'm
so
guessing David wrote down 240 in his book.
Our
I'm
dog.
sure, And
and
he
didn't
was not.
notice the time. Yeah,
Had a
time change
spaniel.
And Mark,
is on his way.
no,
Mark-
he
Oh,
won't.
he is on, okay. So I know
maybe
he's
I
on
should
his way.
start Because I bet you David won't come until 240.
Yeah, okay.
I'm gonna shoot him a text. He was texting me about a different meeting. Not that long ago.
Had to pass her down.
Yeah, yeah.
Someone else here.
Okay. Well, we can start. This is a administrative services meeting on the budget and Wednesday, July 5th, 2023. We will have a visit with the finance and tax director.
Yeah, thank you. So I handed out the 2024 budget levy calculation. And everything that was in the budgets that we handed out is included in here, all the expenses and all the revenue. But in addition, down at the bottom there, I'm telling you, it also includes, that was not in your budget booklet, is the HR pay plan, January 1st, $2.2 million. That's for the 39 regraded positions. They get no step. You get a new grade plus 5% January 1. No, it's 5%. Well, that's what, the-
31st.
yes, that's
That's
right.
just in the.
This is right. And then 112 out of market, no step, 7% plus 5% January 1st. 45 positions are just get a 5% COLA and a step on their seniority date. I've also increased CBIC to 203,985 because we had 105 in your budget booklet that I handed out. So no, now we've increased it to 203. The HR position and the IT position have been added. The ending costs after you do your interfund and your delinquency allowance is 118,125, and that's in here. And the regraded IT position is in here at $7,290 or $248. And the cost to increase the retirement, now it's on all the sheriff's deputies and all the correctional center officers. So there's 83 people but it's only 1.78% greater than what we're currently doing. So that total cost of $100,759 is included in here. So what do I want to give you next? Where's my sheet? I did a calculation by request of the HR department at the end of our last meeting. To do a 5% COLA October 1st for all employees except for the sheriff's deputies. That would be a cost of $147,000. So I've been asked many times, what do we have in the CARES fund? We have 1.6 before we pay the sheriff's deputies. July 1, their increase for the year would be 159. So we have a balance of $1,477,000 in the CARES fund. If you took the 147 from the CARES fund, we'd have the $1.3 million left in there. And of that cost, $147,000 cost, there's $121,000 in the general fund and $22,000 in the highway fund. And I did call Nick today and ask, could you find $22,000 for the highway sheriff if we did a COLA October 1st? And he said yes. The balance, I guess you could take out of the CARES if you wanted to. The estimated value of the mill is $373,595. He's here.
I was thinking we started a little later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Who did we have?
me.
Oh.
We didn't miss much.
Just Debbie.
No wonder you're already up here. I stopped in your office. You're already up.
Oh, sure.
Price of the mill is $5,000.
$373,595 is an estimated value of the mill. We don't know the final value until after the budget, preliminary budget is going to be set. Because it includes the central assessed value, which we don't get from the state until later. So we're gonna set our budget without knowing it's at up or down from 373, but it's close. The value of the mill for this year was 347,000. So we have an estimated increase of $26,500, which is really good, 7.65%. There are budgets that we're missing. We're missing the county fair, the Humane Society, Larimore Historical Society, and the Northwood Economic Development. And Colleen has called them and emailed them, and we're still waiting. So what we have in the budget right now, we didn't put nothing in there. We just left them at what they had last year or this year. So if we don't have a budget, by the time you set your preliminary budget, I would recommend that we give them nothing. So we will take them out if they don't give us something.
I see the chairman of Northwood EDF almost daily.
Oh, here,
We have free coffee at my office. So
oh, sure. So
all the time.
you ask him about it.
Yeah, I'll tell them to get it, but you're turn it in or you get zip.
Yeah,
I don't think they'll be looking for an increase. I think they're fine,
sure.
but
We've got that in there right now. So what I
Yeah.
just handed you is that levy calculation that
yeah,
shows
okay.
all the expenses and revenues that I handed out at the last meeting. But it includes some things that I have listed at the bottom that we didn't hand out, including the salary, the HR salary plan as of January 1st. The increase to CDIC to 203.
Yeah.
The HR position, the IT position, the rated IT position, and the increase the retirement for the sheriff's deputies and correctional center officers to the public safety plan. So that's what that is. We're using $3.16 million, 3.16 that we're using to keep our levy down. If we didn't have that 3.1, we'd be at 58.9. Still be under the 60. We can't be greater than that. So everything that we're currently doing and the additional items we could do because we're under that 60 mils, even if we didn't have the cash. Now, capital improvements is at 8.28 mils. We're only allowed to go up to 10, so we're under that, but we still have 1.72, and I think you're gonna hear more about the parking ramp today and the needs there, so there is a little bit of something in there.
Tom Ford gonna talk about the partner?
Maybe Gracie, are you gonna do it? Or you don't know?
You
I
could
don't
table
feel prepared to talk
Sure,
about it. on
sure.
behalf.
So maybe we won't, but I know that he was going to bring up the
On the
parking.
18th is when he will bring it to
We don't wanna
On
know
the
it anyway.
18th.
Yeah, we're supposed to keep pushing.
And another thing, I will not be ready to do the budget, preliminary budget on the 18th, because I'm gone 3 days next week for the auditor treasurer's convention, Tuesday through Thursday. So it's not gonna give me enough time, so it's gonna happen August 1st.
Debbie, did you say that there's any funds for Niagara Historical Society?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes, and they turned in their budget, so.
Okay, good.
$1,500 in there. There was also, Amaretto contacted me and they wanted to start a historical society, and I told them what they had to do, and they said, oh. I guess not.
I know that somebody donated a building in Amarillo and they kind of started to put some artifacts together.
Yeah.
But hopefully, yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully they can get that figured out and get some
In the
application
future, yeah.
process in the future. I'll talk to somebody there. about
Sure.
that.
So, got another handout for you.
Oh, copy of that one that you just talked about.
I can give you a copy, but I didn't bring up.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, this shows the estimated levy in 2024, and if you look at this sheet, this levy sheet I handed out, that last number on there that says that, that levy is $33,298,535. So that's my estimated levy for 2024, including all the things I mentioned. You compare that to what we levied in 2023, and we levied in 2023, it was $28,567,098. So we have a difference between last year and this year of what we levy is $4.7 million or 16.56%. So why is that? In the general fund, the difference between the estimated levy and the levy in 2023 is $3 million, or 19.71% increase. So where did that come from? Off to the right there, you see the general fund expenses. It's a partial list. These are the major things that goes into that $3 million. Salaries, 2.9.
Where was there? Okay.
So it's 2.9. Now, if you recall, I said the HR plan would only increase at 2.2. So why are we at 2.9? Well, if you see right below there, I said salaries would increase $700,000 if you did nothing. If you decided you're not going to do one thing for anybody else, it would go up 700,000. And it would because we have a 1% increase in retirement. We have the sheriff's deputy increase that you approved July 1. Now we're going to do the whole year in 2024. So we've got that. And anybody that had an anniversary date throughout the year in 2023 will make more in 2024 because they're going to make it for the whole year. So that's why we have 700,000 if you did absolutely nothing. So then I've got the HR position listed, the IT position listed, IT regraded. It's an election year in 2024. I need some money to run that election.
Just work longer hours.
What was that?
Work
Just
longer
work
hours.
I can't run it by myself. I need a couple extra people. PSAP, $92,000. We didn't talk to PSAP, and this was just because the city did a salary study, and that's increased wages for the PSAP department. So that's 92,000. If you're interested in hearing and having them come back and meet with you, I can contact them and have them come in. And then the detox center, I think you heard from them and you knew the needs that they have over at detox, and their increase is 45,000. CVIC 129, and see, this is when the numbers are greater than you might have thought they would be, because when you increase or you add something to your budget line, there's an interim fund. That's a cash that we have budgeted at 25% of the expense that we can carry forward into the next year. So you add your budget times 1.25, and then there's something called the delinquency allowance. And that's further down after you deduct the revenue. The delinquency allowance is 5%. So then you add another 5% because not everyone pays. And so that the numbers appear a little bit greater than you thought they were going to be because of that. Okay, and then the retirement at the 100,759. That brings us to 3.8, just the partial list of the expenses that I listed for the general fund. Now that is a little bit different than the 3 million that I've listed there, and that's because our revenue increased over last year, makes up the difference. And then I have all other special revenue funds at 1.6 million. Capital and construction at 668,000 increase, and we've got a dome project now. And we're going to be funding the correctional center a little bit differently so we can save ourselves $6 million overall, but it costs us more at the start. Yeah. Extension services. Look at that one.
I think we used their cash last year.
I think that's right. We have less cash to use, so their levy went up from the prior year because we don't have the cash to use. And then ambulance service, 6 mils. It was approved by the voters. We can't give them less than 6 mils. So when the value of the mill goes up, they get more money. I don't have state or garrison on here because they're not a county function. I took them off the spreadsheet. We have had them on here in the past, but I've removed them. So I got another sheet for you.
Maybe I have a question. I know during the election year, obviously that's the school district, that's the city and the county. Do they pay a proportionate share of the costs for the election or not?
They used to pay a small dollar amount, and we waived that, so we're allowed to select the locations, the polling locations.
Okay.
So they don't tell us where to have them, we tell them.
Okay.
But then we don't charge them either.
And then I know, was it a couple of years ago, there were the citizens were upset because we ended up in a smaller room for voting at the Alaris. So we'll get in a larger room for voting.
Well,
in 2024.
I think I've got it scheduled out now till I think 2030.
Oh,
And so the problem was you have to get the room so far in advance. And I've also, we're going to pay to have a room because we never had to pay.
Oh.
So now they want to get the person that's going to pay the most money.
Of course.
So it's not us. So we get what's remaining. But yeah,
We don't throw a fit.
we don't have that small room again.
Yeah, I think it was difficult, just the way it was set up for people that were using assistive devices.
Yep.
It wasn't adequate space.
No,
Yeah.
it was not.
Okay, great, thank you.
So what I just passed out is, now I'm going to send out an estimated tax notice, and I have to do that by August 31st. If you approve this budget as is, if you had a residential property at an average value,
Okay, sorry about that. I did too.
so I use the average value of a residential home of $230,000. Now, that $230,000 home on the 2022 taxes, the current year taxes, is gonna increase most likely for next year. And so I put a 5% increase. Now, if it's more or less that your home value went up, that will change the amount that you'll pay in the county taxes. So you take that times 50% to get the assessed value, and then you take it times 9% to get the taxable value. And then you take it times the mill levy to get the county taxes due. So in 2022, in this example, they paid $912.56 in county property taxes. And this year, or next year, they pay $1,031, an increase of $118 or a 13% increase for the county portion. Now, this is not your whole tax bill. Your whole tax bill will have the school, the city, the park, the state, garrison, soil. So it doesn't have everything on here. This is just one line item. Just the county portion would go up 13%. That's if you approved what you were presented today. Now, if it changes, it'll go up or down from that. And then I've got ag commercial. And I just left 230 in there, 2022, went up 4%. Ag values went up 4%, so we know that's true. Commercial, we don't know if it's 4, it might be less than that. But the same holds true. You do 50% to get the assessed value, and it's 10% to get the taxable for ag or commercial. Then they take that times the mill levy, and we have an increase of $120 or 11.9% increase. So that's what the people will see on their tax bill. And then they will be noticed when you're having your budget hearing and can attend if they want to, if they have any questions.
So the question on the ag land, total tax bill will go up by almost 12%.
Oh, no, not the total, because I don't know the total. I don't know anybody other
So
than the
it's
county's
just part of
portion.
it.
So we gotta have the school, the park, the city, the soil, state, garrison.
Okay.
So you wanna be aware of that.
And of course, land values, the closer you get to the river, when you're, not on the beach. I live on the beach of Lake Agassiz. When you get off the sand, then you get into the soil that was under the water. And that's far more productive than on the outlying areas of the county. So some of that,
That was the bottom of the lake.
that was the bottom of the lake. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
And land values are shooting significantly higher. If anybody owns land and you want to make money, you can do it by selling, because there's some farmers that want to irrigate everything, and they're paying millions.
Well, right around Northwood and Hatton, most land was going for 6,000 to 7,000.
Yep.
Somebody paid 8 earlier this spring, and everyone gasped, and then someone came along and paid 10,000 per acre. That's really difficult for smaller farmers to stay in the game.
They can't afford to rent land. It's difficult. It is very difficult for small farmers. But then you got to realize too, that when you're talking about agriculture, many worldwide corporations are funding these big farmers. It's Japan, it's China, it's, Europe. So it's not that this is staying local at all. Large corporations, RDO, Roger Offit, Hoverson and Larimore with potatoes, they're internationally funded. And when they're bidding on property, there's no stopping, none.
Around Northwood, surprisingly, they see an awful lot of the rents, and they're way lower than they should be on that good land, because they're just loyal to the renters.
Yep, and
Fantastic, but that will change somewhere along the way.
yeah,
sure.
and the biggest thing to do when it comes to ag property to get a good valuation is encourage the owners to talk to NDSU Extension. They keep track of the value and what cash rents should be. It's not us to forecast that, but NDSU has a whole department
Sure.
that they have. So NDSU Extension is where possibly some of your clients or some people you know that are owners, they do want to stay loyal to the cash renters. But sometimes farmers take advantage of cash rent, the landowners too. And that's very unfortunate because they can't afford it. They came in an old pickup. We have the $100,000 ones are back at the farm. So, and I'm not saying that every farmer has money like that, but it is unfortunate when you see those big variances on cash rent. So we see that at ours farm too.
Oh, anything else?
So,
Yes,
yes.
go on.
Yep, I just passed out the capital improvements. Here are all the requests just for 2024. And just so you know, we have $1 million in our 2024 budget. And we have over $1 million in requests. There's a $20 million parking ramp. I would guess that's over time, but he did put on the sheet 2023, so.
So I would assume, and I messaged him, I would assume that wasn't a typo, I think 2 million to get things
Yeah, I was
fixed.
gonna say,
I messaged him,
But you see where I got it from, he wrote 20 million
Yep.
on there for
I-
2023.
I do, that would be over time if it was 20 million for sure, but I think the immediate repairs ranged from like 1.5 to 2.
But we will have some bonding money for that.
I thought the max was 6 million total if we did everything at one time.
That's true.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Over a period of time, I actually have the assessment line in my desk, and I could go grab that right now. But
I don't think you need to.
No.
To get it. But even if you took the 20 million off, you'd be over $1 million.
Yep. But I wouldn't say that. I think it's like 1.5 to 2 million. That is extremely pressing for the rep, my understanding, for 2020.
Sure.
Some of the,
The IT put theirs 2024, 2025. Well, is it half and half? But I put the full amount just in this year, so we probably can take some of it out and put it in the future years as well. We have $1 million in the budget. These are the requests, and then I attached to it the actual receipts that are forms that I received from each department, and then you could see also listed what they want for future years, not just 2024, but later years.
a couple things too, when it comes to capital improvements. I know that we've heard requests for a tractor mower, snow removal. I know we've heard, but you know, really, I don't know if some of those items should go to specific departments or if it should go into through janitorial services, because I don't feel, and this is maybe looking at my farm perspective, I don't feel that everybody has to have a tractor mower, snow blower. I think one or two, whatever we do, whether it's with the roads and bridges, with the janitorial service, with the correctional center, I don't think they need to have one and have it parked many, many days, because they don't get used 24/7. They're gonna be used when the snow is available, when the lawn is growing up, whatever. I think a shared, maybe some of those resources
The
would
thing
make
is,
sense.
the jail,
Parking lot.
Bill Grashevsky gonna be taking care of
Right,
all of it.
good.
And I don't know that Brett knows about that yet, so.
I
know-
think that's a
know
good
that Bill and Brett are having a meeting on June 10th.
Yeah.
Or July 10th, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
July 10th. Because I asked him, I said, does Brett know that you're going to take over the snow removal? And then he said that Brett has to participate. So I don't, you know, the tractor might be
That has to
needed.
Participate in what way?
Like, yes, move the snow.
Yes, not him himself, but his staff will have to help move snow. His
They
staff will
will-
have to
They
move.
actually will be working for Bill Grashevsky, actually, right?
But that's the
Have
one,
you had the conversation? That's been in the works for a while.
Yeah.
but
But I don't know if anyone's had that conversation.
No,
yet.
haven't.
We
No.
will be,
yeah, so that person could do, is just gonna do here, or are they gonna do
so
both?
I think maybe we need to have a meeting where we have Brett
Brett and-
and Bill.
Yes.
here,
They
because it seems like, I don't know if they know, and maybe they don't know until after July 10th.
No,
They both have an immediate need too. I mean, it's not like you can
no,
do one late in the day. Now you gotta do the rent right away.
Well,
I suppose you have to do the correctional center.
so
right
I
away.
think, right, I think, so his staff will have to be doing snow removal out there.
Does the jail have, I thought they had some sort of snow removal, or was that?
They had a
lawnmower?
company
Oh,
that
yeah.
did their
Mm,
snow
that's right.
removal. Now, they don't have the company anymore, and so I think maybe that's why it's thinking he needs this truck.
Well, and, you know, I honestly can't tell you what's where of, as far as resources that the county has, but, those items can be shared, I would believe, at some level, instead of everybody having to have a separate piece of equipment.
And
Yeah,
you
well,
don't
they
need to
wouldn't-
decide today what,
no.
We're
what
talking about
project you
buying
wanna
many
do. I'm
pieces.
just telling you, here are the requests I have, and I have $1 million in the budget. That's it.
Got it.
So you might look at like, oh, we wouldn't do this, we wouldn't do that, or maybe we need to increase our $1 million line item.
Well,
If we
with
do
the-
that, though, it does change
Everything else.
everything else.
But recognize that some of the IT requests are over a span of 2
Yes.
years.
That's right.
So
So
that will
I've
make
got the
it
full, it could make it less than.
Yes, yes.
But Debbie, we're now halfway through this budget. We're still coming to you saying, what's left in the capital budget? We
When-
can't spend it all in January, is the point.
Right.
Right.
Because there will be things that may come up that we don't
Right.
anticipate.
Yep.
I do have one question just relative to mills and taxes, and I know we were fortunate to have home rule charter go through, but at what point do we start discussing possibly talking about a tax? And it's gonna have to take quite a bit of education for people to understand this isn't just on the residents in the county, but this is individuals coming into the county.
Sales tax revenue.
Yes,
So we talked about doing that in 2024. We didn't do it this year because the city's gonna do it.
yeah.
The city's going for their
And the
sales tax.
school just did-
And they're still getting over the Grand Forks Public School
Right.
vote there too. So,
But the thing of it is that, you know, I don't think that we can continue to push it down
you
to
can't. No.
2025,
So the
2020.
chances of passing this year would be good.
No, I would agree.
I would suggest then you would do it for June 2024.
Not the general election, but I think in general.
And as long as we can do a good enough job of educating the public on your property taxes aren't gonna get raised. We're hoping that more people that come into the county for whatever concerts, just, you know, whatever type of entertainment that's available, basketball, sporting good stuff that UND offers, tournaments, bantam hockey, some of those, they're coming in, they're spending money on hotels and restaurants and.
And that's the frustrating part because that's exactly what we talked about last
I
time,
know,
all the way along.
I
And it's
know.
like people say, I'm tired of paying taxes. Well,
But when you go to Fargo, you
What
pay
they
a
asked
city
about is,
tax.
why are you doing new taxes? More taxes. And it's not that, it's more
So-
fair thing.
We might have the question in 2024 to get rid of property taxes. That might be a question
Well,
too.
yeah, wouldn't that be special in the counties? Wow.
I would say that just remembering numbers, the sales tax failed by 20 votes.
Right.
In that if you all were to pursue that again, you probably want to, as the city has done and as the parks are doing, probably want to do some sort of study, and that will cost money
Mhm.
before pursuing a sales tax to figure out if people are interested and if it's worth pursuing at all and figuring out what resonates.
Yeah.
I think a direct mailing to all the property owners,
Yep.
saying, would you just as soon have someone help you with this tax burden? I think we'd get a different response
Exactly.
from all the people who rent and come through, but
Well, and I don't know, and Kimberly, maybe you would have a better idea because your family does travel for sporting events, but you pay up to 15% when you go into Minneapolis for a tax for lodging, a lodging tax. And it's determined by county or by city. I don't think they have a lodging tax here in Grand Forks. I haven't recalled seeing them.
I guess I don't know.
think there's a small.
I thought there was a
think
hotel
they do.
tax.
Is there?
Vegas has it, doesn't it? Don't they?
Yeah,
I think
Tax on it?
I think so.
Their, sales
3/4 sales tax, but it expired, so that's why they need the vote.
Oh, it's a sunset.
It's
Majority
going
vote,
to
right?
expire. It hasn't expired yet.
Okay.
Majority vote again? We need to convince 20 people.
Well, I don't know that we need to do a study. I think we need to maybe inform people what it means.
Yeah, I feel like it's
I think
soon enough
if you do a
after
direct
that, so,
mailing,
yeah.
you need to tell people what this would
Yeah.
mean
Yeah.
and how it affect. And the thing is, how many people are going to read it anyway?
Well,
They get
need
it
to
like,
read
oh,
it,
it's
and then,
Right.
well, what was the
postcard.
number of people that passed the school board thing this year?
Yeah.
How many people voted? 3,000-4,000?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's not a lot.
Not a lot.
On that, in that June election, people just don't realize they're not helping decide the way they want it to be. They just let things go and don't vote.
Yeah, we need to figure out some creative solutions because I know just our family, we are the ones, a lot of majority of our community, young families trying to make ends meet. And if they don't, I'm not gonna say this for everybody, but they don't have time to continue to research and try to learn
Right.
all of this stuff. So we need to find a creative solution to give them educational material without continuing to send them mailers because they're gonna go in the trash. I mean,
Yeah. Right.
and that's a waste of
Paper.
money.
Yeah, and our town hall meetings, nobody showed up all the time,
Oh, no.
hardly at all.
Well, then maybe we need to become, like I said, more creative on how we let people know that these are going on, whether it's in person, a Zoom community meeting like we did during COVID, something like that.
Or maybe
Because,
something on Facebook.
yeah, I
or-
think social media would be a
Yeah.
huge
And we
compliment to that.
to do that, there's probably more that could be done, but that was done for the.
It was, yeah,
Did you
a lot of
have
social media.
commissioners speaking like that why this is important?
We did not
what it
get any
would be?
videos.
The other
You
thing
didn't
that,
have video? Yeah, I think videos would be helpful.
the other thing that the board did that I really appreciated was they had like a mini podcast that they did and like YouTube videos that really, because I think 15-second snippets of information, like a news, is
Yeah.
if people
Yeah.
are gonna see the headline and move on.
Yeah.
They need long, drawn-out conversations, like podcasts. Not that we need to have a 2-3 hour podcast, but be able to articulate an answer so people can hear the full story rather than little snippets of information. So Facebook and Instagram or whatever we utilize is good, but maybe we need to broaden that with like a mini podcast series of asking all of the questions and having in-depth conversations and taking live questions or something, whatever it may be.
It will be interesting to see how the city addresses their 3/4 sales tax.
I got an email from the Secretary of State's office today asking if I'm going to have any other elections this year. And so I called the city and I said, where are you at with your election? And they said, nothing's been approved yet, but they're looking at an October, November timeframe.
Or what?
An election,
I know,
the
what-
sales tax.
Sales tax.
To have a
Question,
special
because that, it's going to be expiring, I think, the end of the year. Is it?
My understanding is they're pursuing it early because it expires in 2027 or 2028. It is,
Wow,
right?
that's really early.
Because they don't want to get to a place where suddenly, if it's not approved this time, they can't
Do it again.
reframe and bring it back to voters and they're in a hard spot.
So nothing's been said. The city council has not approved anything. But they just said maybe October, November, yep, this year. They'd have an election,
Well, it may not be a bad idea to think about, Jim.
June 2024.
Part of this setback that we have is we don't have a daily newspaper anymore. There's a lot more of our population that likes the email or likes the quick podcast or likes a quick Facebook or that information. You're not wasting paper. Granted, a mailing, I think, is beneficial to some. We don't usually have a huge voting voters that turn out in June. I don't know if that's advantageous or not advantageous, honestly. But I think certainly it's something that we need to look at. And we don't want to say, oh, people forget. That's not the case. The case was we had a good turnout for the vote when we ran with the home rule charter. We just need to add to it to try to lower income taxes and lower property taxes, because right now that's our only option. We can be very, very supportive of the businesses coming in. We look at Grand Sky, and the parking lot used to be maybe half full at Northrop Grumman, and now it's full. The parking lot is full with cars. I can't tell you about General Atomics, they're farther off the road, but Northrop Grumman is busy. They're
The
busy.
employment numbers are so high out there, it blows us away from what we thought they would be now.
And hopefully, the city of Emerado can try to respond with some more food service options. It's hard because it's hard to get people to work right now. You know, just finding enough employees to run your business is difficult. But I think that we need to move forward proactively, and I think in everybody's eyes, try to do some give some options out so that people do truly understand this isn't going after taxes of residents. This is for people coming in to utilize services as well.
One of the things about the psychological things about the June election, it's sort of like primaries. A committed minority votes because they want to get they'll sometimes get a candidate on that is really not a majority candidate type thing. We see this, I think I see the same thing with people who are going to vote no. We were very concerned about that when we got the school levy passed a few years ago for the auditorium. So we really hit that part of it and got more than we needed, but we didn't have any idea what was going to happen because not enough people voted now.
So it is 2:40, and our next item is Youth Works. And maybe there'll be time for additional discussion after.
Do you have any documents for that?
No, I have no documents for you.
And they weren't on before?
They're right
They're
here.
up there.
Oh, I see.
On Zoom.
We have taken over the Youth Assessment Center has taken over what was provided by Youth Works in the past. So I'm not exactly sure if that's what they're requesting or something
Okay.
different.
It works.
So who is here today to speak about the request from Youth Works?
So I am Melanie Heitkamp. I'm the Executive Director of Youth Works. And Tom, you go ahead and
I'm
introduce.
Tom. Yeah, my name is Tom Cook. I'm the program manager here that I actually oversee the day report program that we have, as well as a divert program up in Grand Forks.
And then
we
Jeanette.
also- Jeanette.
Hi, I'm Jeanette Grafstedt, and I'm the CPA for Youth Works.
So the three of us are here today, and historically, we took over the divert program along with the attending care program and the day report program from Lutheran Social Services when Lutheran Social Services closed. The budget that we were given regarding that Lutheran Social Services had historically requested indicated that a certain percentage of the funds that were requested were for attendant care, but $14,000 of those funds from Grand Forks County was for the divert program. And so I think that's where there's some confusion, because I think that when we stopped doing the attendant care program and Grand Forks County took over I think you called it your assessment center, or your attendant care program, I think the thought was that the $14,000 that was in the budget was also for that, but historically that's always been a combined funding source along with the Supreme Court through your juvenile court to provide funding for a program that is meant to divert youth out of the juvenile court system. And so somehow I think that was the piece that was missed. And when we stopped taking funding from the attendant care program, we still received that 14,000 this last biennium or this last year from Grand Forks County. So that is the amount that we would need to know if there's absolutely no way that Grand Forks County will be providing that funding any longer, then that certainly would impact our ability to provide the divert services at the level that we're providing it now.
Ms. Heitkamp, if I may ask a question, this is Haley Wamstead from the State's Attorney's Office.
Yes.
As you're likely aware, for the status offenses, the unruly juveniles, they're handled much differently due to a legislative change a few sessions ago. And now they're not processed through the judicial system any longer, but rather through the human service zone. Do you receive referrals for these programs from the zone, or is it strictly referrals through the juvenile court?
We actually receive referrals from both. We do receive most of our referrals from the courts, but in past months, I would say the last 3 months, we have been working closely with some of the CHINS workers through the service zone. And so to answer your question is we actually receive referrals from both.
Thank you.
Ms. Heitkamp, the amount that we had been in the past giving for the divert program, I don't know when, it wasn't last year. Did you receive any money last year? In 2023, we're not giving any money to the divert program, but did we in 2022 or is it earlier? Do you know?
Jeanette, I'm going to let you answer that.
I believe we did receive money in 2022. But we have not received anything in 2023.
Yeah, we did not include anything in our 2023 budget for it.
Do you recall the amount that you received in 2022?
I will look it up and
I
then
think
I'll
it
let.
was $8,000.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm sorry, you think it's how much?
It was 14,000, I believe,
Yeah.
but I don't know if it was in 2022 or if it was earlier. If it was 2021, was the last time we funded that?
She's looking it up right now for you to verify when the last time we received funding from Grand Forks County.
Well, she's looking that up. This is Haley again. Does your agency receive funding from other counties for these programs?
In Minot last biennium, we did receive money for the diversion programming similar to Grand Forks County. This biennium, they did not provide that funding through the Supreme Court for those services. I believe out in the Dickinson area, there may be another entity that receives diversion money. I can't speak to whether they receive county funds or not. When we inherited the program, we just followed the same kind of funding sources that had been provided to Lutheran Social Services.
Thank you.
Is the total request 14,000?
Yes,
Thank you.
to keep the services, to keep the worker and the services at the level that they're at, it would be 14,000. And I don't know if someone has access to the previous agendas from the county commissioners meeting, but for that 14,000 that she is checking on, there, we did make a presentation to the county commissioners for that.
We don't
Where
have
the-
one here. We could look and I can.
I
Get the contract the last time it was paid.
yeah,
Yeah, the social services for that deferred program, so. I do have it in my office.
yeah, I've been before Grand Forks County Commissioners at least twice since Lutheran Social Services has closed.
We did receive the money in 2022. We received 14,000 in 2022.
Was there a request made for 2023?
I don't-
When you say request, are you saying request for payment or request for funding?
Funding. For funding, I believe you came to our budget hearings last year,
That's,
and they decided, commission at that time, not to include it in the 2023 budget.
It was denied in 2023.
I don't know if we were at that meeting then, because we've had it in the budget. We did not realize it wasn't in your budget. And historically, what had happened before, I think when things got confusing was when we stopped doing attendant care. That it became confusing. So for a period of time, we actually were providing attendant care services as well in 2022.
So, I just have a question because Haley had asked about where the referrals were coming from. And then they shared that some of those are coming from the zone. Do we know if this should be part of the zone budget? Because these are children in need of services. And I don't know how that's structured. But I wonder if it is supposed to be or could be part of their budget as well. Because I do know that they had an increase in their budget for next year.
So I did visit a bit with Antoine on that question. He referred me to a gal named Lynn Flight. She is with the Ransom Sergeant Richland Human Service Zone. What she had explained to me is that since the social services redesign, their human service zone handles all the CHINS matters. And so regardless of what county it occurs in, the CHINS cases are referred to that zone. When I visited with her, she didn't believe that referrals were made from their CHINS program to Day Report or Divert. But she had indicated that if it was a service provided, that how the zones are structured, the services provided would be at the expense of the state.
With the changes that have been made with the status offenses and the CHINS, I think that all of the process of rolling that out has been met with some glitches in terms of how referrals are made and each juvenile court, because we serve juvenile courts in Bismarck, Fargo, they all do it just a little bit differently. Not that whether they would, I mean, obviously the law is the same, but how referrals, how they handle their diversion program is a little bit different in each juvenile court from my experience. And so it would make sense probably for the courts now that they understand what CHINS youth actually look like in terms of, because this is fairly new to the zones, to see if it makes sense that funding would would stay with the zones or be in the zone budget. And so that makes sense to me. You know, I think that in the course of planning and in the course of rolling this out, and then considering what will happen to diversion programs, it has been different in every court in terms of whether they kept their diversion program. So for instance, in Minot, we provided diversion up in Minot up until the last week. And so every court's been a little bit different. We stopped providing diversion services in Fargo, for instance, with the rollout. So, I mean, there's a number of possibilities in looking at who are these youth, and you know, whose youth, where should the funding come from? I think that's makes sense to have that conversation about where should the funding come from to serve these youth. And from my experience, I will tell you that, and I think a lot of folks would tell you that right now, there has been gaps and a lack of services to CHINS families, to families whose youth are identified as CHINS. I think your schools would tell you that. I think that, but I think that the state and many of the folks are trying to work through that and figure that out. But there are families that are frustrated, and there is some just with the changeover, some I think that the CHINS workers are finding that there's more youth than they can stay on top of, and they can be a resource to the families. So the need is there. And in the case of Grand Forks, I think the reason why the Supreme Court decided to fund the Grand Forks Divert program again is because of the numbers, because they do see that need. We had hoped that Scott could be on, the head of the juvenile court, and he is not able to be here today. But he felt, I know that Scott feels the service is important to the families and to the youth.
And to clarify, that's the Sean Peterson.
Or I'm sorry, Sean. Sorry.
I would just echo what Ms. Heitkamp said. I know our office prosecutes juvenile offenses, whether it be what previously was CHINS or the delinquent offenses, and it is a good program, certainly. And I would also echo the frustrations over the last several years with the CHINS cases. Without going into great detail, it was not perfectly drafted legislation. Essentially, the legislature took the CHINS, or what previously was unruly offenses, out of the purview of the judicial system, but then waited a couple years before they were under the umbrella of the human service zones. So there was like a 2-year gap where these cases weren't being addressed by anybody. So I certainly think there are frustrations, and now that they are under the zones umbrella, I think it's kind of just working through the glitches and making sure that, you know, they have the resources and whatnot.
Well, and the workers that were hired to do the CHINS work are not service providers. They are providers who link families and youth to resources, but not the actual, they're, as I understand it, there is outside of your human service centers and places like that, there aren't direct service providers going into the home to provide that service outside of, you know, your human service centers and places like that. So what they're discovering is caseloads that are for each CHINS worker numbering around 200 families or youth. And I don't know, I don't have those numbers for Grand Forks, but I think that they're available. our expertise at YouthWorks was always in runaway and homeless youth. That was really how we started our agency. And we still believe that that need is great in terms of the families needing the support and resources. Whether this should be a Grand Forks County and Supreme Court funded program, I think that's a reasonable question to ask. But at this point, I'm not aware of other funding that's available to provide for those families at this point. The other thing I want you to know for Grand Forks is that we're lucky enough to have a worker who has the credentials and the experience. And she, I believe, Tom, it will have her master's in counseling in December. She really loves her work. She loves doing what she does. It's hard to find workers like that. So I worry that if there's any kind of gap, that we could lose Devin, who is providing those services to youth and families. And so, and clearly, once she is receiving all her licensure, she's not indicating she has any desire to do something different at all, but it's very difficult to find folks who have that level of expertise and that interest and that education to provide this. So that's one of the worries that Tom and I have, is not losing her, because she's very well respected and does an excellent job in your area.
Okay, any other questions? And what was the step to discuss this? Is there anything else we're gonna find out about the social services zone? Probably not before the preliminary budget though, right?
Probably not. You know, I didn't follow all the legislative information, and I don't know if there was any money put in to enhance these services to youth such as this. And so I'm really not aware of anything. Nothing has come to us saying this is an opportunity to provide these services through this type of funding mechanism.
Well, we've got another one of these meetings now at 3 o'clock, so thank you.
Okay.
For
Thank you very much.
enlightening us
Thank you
today.
all.
Yeah. I think Janelle Reginald is out in the hallway.
Got one or two?
There's two.
Yep.
Or Whitney or is it
Oh, we got
yours?
lots.
Oh, there's a couple. I have a map.
Hmm?
Feature map.
Oh, sure thing.
Take one of each.
Yeah, that's it. Right, my name's Dave Engen. Lee Hagan is on the commission, Cindy Peach over there, Bob Rost is the chair, and Mark Rusted is on Zoom. So we're all here. So can you introduce yourselves and then one of you choose to go ahead, please.
Certainly. Thank you for allowing us to be here. My name is Janelle Regenbaugh. I am the chairperson of the Aspire ND Board of Directors. Aspire is a statewide organization that provides Healthy Families America-based home visitation program, along with some other services. And I'm pleased to be joined by one of our key staff members here from Grand Forks.
Yeah, so my name is Izzy. I am the program coordinator for the Healthy Families program in the Grand Forks area.
So we thought what we would do is go through just some information in general about the program, but mainly just provide an opportunity for you to ask questions about the proposal that you have before us. The Healthy Families program has been in existence here in Grand Forks, really dating back to the flood of 1997 is when conversations began. And so it's unique. I mean, I am the board chair of Aspire, but I was here and working for Lutheran Social Services of North Dakota at the time that the idea of bringing the Healthy Families America home visitation program to North Dakota was born. And it really was born out of the flood with concern about increased stress in the community, and all the communities up and down the valley can oftentimes lead to additional child abuse and neglect situations. And for those of you that were in the community at that time or heard about it, it doesn't take much of a reach to think about why that could occur. Families had so much stress financially, and their living conditions were disrupted, all kinds of things. And it was very much a grassroots movement. I started meeting various organizations across the area, which included at that time Grand Forks County Social Services, now the Human Service Zone, and had conversations about how can we make this work. And frankly, we all agreed to do it, but none of us had one dime, or not much more than one dime, to put forward for it. And so all of these collaborating agencies, I think at that time about 15 came together and birthed this program. And I'm just so pleased that here we are many, many years later, and it's still in existence, it's growing, and it all started right here in Grand Forks. So I always see this as the place where Healthy Families America model, that is an evidence-based model, came to bear fruit in North Dakota. And because of the work here in Grand Forks, it has expanded to almost half the counties in the state. With a lot of hard work by the staff of the program and board of directors, everybody on down, but also because of the commitment of people like the Grand Forks Commission, who really for many years has provided us with some parts to our budget puzzle. And I'm going to call it that, because as you can see from the information that Missy Barranco, our executive director, put forward, we're asking you for $12,000 this next year, which represents just a little over 5% of the local budget. So when you see that budget of $217,000, that is not the budget serving the statewide organization, that is the budget serving this area and serving the families in this community. And I know because I sit on boards and I do some of the work that's similar to you. In fact, I'm your vice chair of the Human Service Zone here in Grand Forks County. And I know that you can look at that and go, well, what do they need $12,000 for us for? It's 5% of their budget. And frankly, it's because the state and other funders demand that we have local support. It's important to them to have local support. We use it for match. Sometimes we can't match federal with federal, right? So we have to have local dollars in order to operate and bring in other dollars to leverage to make sure the families that we serve, which if you ask me are very high risk, critical families, even though it might seem like a drop in the bucket, I know it's not. It really makes a difference in our budget. We were really fortunate to have those funds until the last couple of years, and we know you have difficult decisions to make. And so we're hoping that you will reconsider adding us into the budget this upcoming year, calendar year, because of the impact it can have on the families that we serve. I'm going to just touch base on a couple of things, but Izzy is really the expert on the services that are provided. So just from my perspective, I think some of the most important things for you to know is that this program is an evidence-based program. It is not something we just do that we think has good outcomes. And you've been given a kind of a fact sheet or a 2-pager that helps you to understand what kind of outcomes we have. We certainly believe that the most critical time for impacting a child's life begins prenatally and up through their first few years of birth. And so this is an important investment you can make at the county commission level that frankly, I think it really impacts all the work that you do. I mean, it impacts jails. If you can get children off on a right foot, they're never going to end up taking up a bed in the correctional center. They're never going to be in prison. If you can help parents get help for a substance abuse problem that they have or a mental health problem they have, they're going to get that help and they're going to be able to continue to parent, and that child is not going to end up in foster care. So, I could go on and on with lots and lots of stories, but you have the specifics before you, and maybe just turn it over to Izzy to just, share anything from her perspective that she might want to mention to you, and then we'll see what kind of questions you have.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, Janelle, in that this is really the way that we look at this program is from a prevention standpoint. I have a very long history working with mental health in the area, and this program is so special because we really hit these at-risk individuals before they get to the point where they need these other services. So one of the previous jobs that I've had that you guys might be familiar with is I was a direct support professional at Ruth Myers Adolescent Center for 3 years. And so I really believe that with the services that we provide in this program, these children that we're helping, these parents that we're helping, are going to end up better off and not needing those kinds of services in the future. So I do believe that Janelle is correct on this when she says that this program supports the whole community and strengthens the whole community. Another huge part of what we do is referrals. So we are providing referrals to families who need services, mental health services, substance use services. So we are, helping the community in that way as well.
And that really can't be understated. And maybe you all can relate to this a little bit like I have. I mean, my gosh, I'm a licensed professional clinical counselor. I've been in human services my whole life. And I remember when my mom and dad were aging and they needed help. I wasn't sure where to go, right? I was kind of embarrassed. Everyone in my family looked at me like, Janelle, you're the social worker or whatever. You should know this stuff. It's confusing where to go for service. When you have a need, you don't know. You don't know where to look. You get in the black hole of the internet, right? I mean, the information is there, but people aren't always aware. So linkage to community services, and more so than just telling somebody call somewhere, but actually having what I would describe as a warm handoff makes all the difference in the world. To be that voice on the other end that is there with that client and makes the phone call, connects them, make sure they have any barriers reduced to get to that appointment. If that appointment doesn't go well, how to help them manage that and decide, what to do instead. Or, that counselor maybe you didn't connect with, but maybe someone else is the right person. Let's find the right person for you. All those things that bridge what families need and getting them to that next step and making sure that they're the best parents they can be has a multi-generational impact. So as you can tell, I'm extremely passionate about this. I'm a parent, not a grandparent yet. I have grand dogs, but at someday I hope to be a grandparent. And I just think everyone should have access to home visitation to make sure that they have that capability and have everything that they need to be the best that they can be, to bring a child through all the struggles of growing up and getting them to the right place and where they need to be. So with that, we'll entertain any questions, please.
I've got one question. I think you mentioned that there had been funding, but there hadn't been funding for a few years. Would you explain that for us?
Yes, and I can't tell you the history of how many years the county provided funding to Lutheran Social Services for this program. Debbie, you probably know, but
I don't know off
LSF.
the top of my head, but we did fund it.
Yeah.
yes, yep. And then
And that's what I
during
thought.
the transition,
LSF funding.
yes, and when Lutheran Social Services abruptly closed its doors, Aspire North Dakota kind of sprang up through the ashes of that with the hard work of Missy Bronco to start her own organization, her own 501c3, primarily to provide for the continuance of healthy families. During that time period, my recollection is that the deadline to ask you for continued support had passed. And so then we missed a year of funds. This previous year we requested and you weren't able to support our request. And so here we are asking for you to consider this year.
Izzy, I do have a question for you. How many families do you know are served in Grand Forks County?
So I just looked at this before we came in. So currently right now we have 36 actively enrolled families in Grand Forks County and many open referrals, close to 20 open referrals. We are hoping, or we're in the process of hiring another family support specialist. So we're hoping to be able to fill their caseload, which should be able to provide services to about 15 more families. So we have grown a lot in the last few years, and we hope we see a continuance of that growth in the next few years.
Thank you.
You can see the large percent of our referrals that come right directly from the human service zone of families that the zone is concerned that without, additional support, are at risk for being a part of the CPS and ultimately perhaps the foster care system.
And we work closely with the zone with those referrals, as long as the family's okay with it, to coordinate services and help the families keep the kids and children in their homes.
I had a quick question. You had mentioned in the beginning that you believe that helping children begins in the womb. Do you guys work with the Women's Pregnancy Center too?
Yes.
You do? Okay, so it just wasn't listed on the different places, but.
And we do provide services throughout the prenatal period.
Yeah, over the years, our services have changed quite a bit. When we first started, we did not engage prenatally. And over time, we've been able to expand that and continue to work with families even earlier, which is super important for their care and being ready to bring a child home.
This time I'll ask for Commissioner Rusted. I forgot you last time on the screen, but have you got any questions or comments? What do you think?
Apparently not.
Oh, okay. Can't hear you.
He's not technically
Might not
savvy.
be.
He might not be able to get the mute button out either.
That's happened to me. Anyone else in the meantime? Thanks for coming in. This helps us understand that how you got where you are and where you're going forward. So thank you.
Sure.
a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for consideration. Feel free to reach out to either of us, local or to Missy, if you have questions that come up afterwards. We'd be happy. Michelle, Cindy, you guys all know where to get a hold of us. So you can text and we'll get you a quick answer to any questions. So thank you.
Thank you. All of this, there was quite a drop in things when LSS just slammed the door shut on there.
How many years ago was that now? Two, three?
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
3 years?
Got involved in too much housing in the western part of the state.
They had the housing in Northwood, and next thing you know, they're gone.
Had to be
Else was the low income housing project.
unable to
Are you ready for
continue
that?
to support.
Money,
services.
you're up there.
I was on that Healthy Families Protection. The Annie Casey Foundation recognized Grand Forks County for the work that was done with Healthy Families.
I've got 20 pages, 23 and 24. Oh, that new stuff?
Yeah.
Or is it still?
Juvenile detention.
Well, I know, but this is this was. Is there any difference between the
No.
23 and 24 that you
No.
told us to look at?
We just thought you might not have it.
Oh, which is always the case, but not today. Keep my underlined papers in front of me. I think you're gonna do an awful lot of photocopying for us, knowing we will have left it at home.
So do you want to talk about the requests that we've received for Divert Day report and Healthy Families now, or we have 4 minutes? 4 minutes. Or after we're waiting for
Well,
Kimberly
we
to come
got
back.
a few comments. You got, I for one, am very much in favor of what LSS used to do. I didn't know someone picked these things up. They are not big numbers either. So I think I'd like to see.
Are you going to check on the Divert Day report, whether or not we can fund that through, or we can't check on that?
You know, it's a real,
I think
it's a really
somebody
good
could
question.
possibly
Yeah.
ask a question to Kristen Hasbargen.
So I did ask this Lynn Fleet, she's the Antoine, essentially in a different zone. And their zone handles all CHIN's cases. And she explained to me that services provided are covered by the state. I don't know if they're.
Is that the Divert Day? You say CHINS, I don't know what CHINS is.
So CHINS is Child's child in need of services. So it's what's previously called an unruly child. So status offenses, truancy, ungovernable behavior. What else is there that I'm not thinking, like tobacco violations?
So that would, the divert and day report would fall in there.
Well, so yes, but also under juvenile court. So divert and day report are potential dispositions for delinquent children and CHINS children. And so it's a program that's had cases referred through juvenile court for many, many years. Like I said, very good programs. Our office works on the delinquency cases. They're useful, productive programs. With that said, the statutes have changed recently where our involvement is less. The CHINS cases are no longer processed through the judicial system. So our office isn't involved, the courts aren't involved. They're all referred to this Ransom Sergeant Richland County Human Service Zone. And their workers assigned to the CHINS cases just connect these families with services. So no kid goes into court for truancy anymore or anything like that. So the question that was posed to me is legally, can the county contribute to these programs? My legal opinion is that it's somewhat of a stretch because the county isn't involved in these types of cases any longer. And as this Lynn Flythe stated, it's something that would be a cost of the state because of the social services redesign. So while I fully recognize they're very good programs, I'm not sure that the funding source should be counting on this.
How would we break it up? I mean, it'd be something less than the ask then, but not completely. Dunaway?
Well, both of them are state functions. They're not county at all.
Well, and that,
Service zone,
Well,
that could be funded, and also the juvenile court is state funded.
right, so for the CHINS and so I view YouthWorks differently than the Healthy Families program. YouthWorks is the services they're providing are all to state agencies.
Yeah.
Versus Healthy Families, they do provide services to our zone, whether or not it would be a reimbursable expense. I don't know that answer.
If
And
that
you said
also
that
would
it's
be in the
important to have
zone
local
budget.
input.
Maybe we need to do some more checking before we decide
Yep.
Yeah,
if you put it
so-
in your budget or not.
yeah, so before we do finish the temporary or preliminary budget, we'll have to figure it out, right?
It is a small amount, so.
Yeah, right. I think we can put them in and take it out on final maybe, but just so we have time.
well, and that Antoine's still on retainer, so you could certainly email
Oh, he
him
might know.
to ask if it's a possibility, if the YouthWorks as well as Healthy Families, he goes through the budget bills every month when we meet, but we haven't specifically talked about these two types of programs that are available and what is, if there is anything available in their budget, or if it just goes through the contact at the state level. He would know that, and he should be able to address that via email.
I did ask him about the YouthWorks. I visited with Antoine before June 30th. And he indicated that our zone doesn't have anything to do with those CHINs. They're all referred to this Ransom Sergeant and Richland County zone.
Well, and there are specific funds that went to state, and state was gonna budget those, kind of half the social services zone staff are state and some are county. So that's something I think that we need to try to follow through on.
All right. Move on.
Yes.
Juvenile detention, what have you got?
time I came, nobody asked me anything. I just kind of sat here, so I'm kind of winging it here. I guess most of the numbers are gonna be the same. The only thing that I wanted to change was the part-time salaries, and I would be it was at 115,000. I was requesting it at 160,000. Just taking on shelter care, attendant care. We've definitely noticed a need for more staff. And of course, I prepared the budget before we fully took on shelter care, and shelter care has been a bit of a nightmare. Realistically, to keep everybody safe, I would almost want to request an additional 3 full-time officers for next year's budget, and that is because I should probably have 4 staff on at all time. 2 upstairs, a male and a female, and 2 downstairs. I have had, in the 3-month shelter care has been open, I have had 4 different staff assaulted. So we can't necessarily go hands-on with them down there. And it's an unsecure facility, so they're not locked down. It's a lot riskier kids down there, I guess. So that was not changed on my budget, so I don't know what the cost would be for 3 full-time employees, but I would want to add that if I can.
So instead of approximately 100,000 on employee salaries, we're talking what amount?
Well, it went from, for the part-time, it was 115, so up to 160.
Plus 3 full-time employees that were not shown in this budget at all.
Right. And I can't remember what I put for the revenue, but I know this year so far, just in the report I got today, we're already at 218% of revenue because we're bringing in approximately 40,000 a month now.
So do you know what grade they would be, these positions?
It would start as an 8 until they went to CO school, and then up to a 9 after the first year.
You know, she just said something that triggered me to think that they would also be covered under this retirement.
It would,
Because CO one.
yeah. I just asked her if her full-time people are required to go to CO basic. So and she said,
Yes.
yes.
Yep.
So I need to
And
add.
so we need to add,
So what you originally requested for part-time staff to what you're requesting now is 40, 50,000? Or am I doing my math wrong?
45.
45.
Additional.
On the sheet, it's 45,000.
But then the 3 employees, I would guess, they're grade 8, you know, what they are. We did, what was, Bill's? What his position was, he had it was I think that was $75,000.
right.
So we're getting close to 100,000 probably, and at times 300,000.
But there is some revenue being generated.
But we already got the revenue in here.
Okay.
It would, I'll just put 300,000 in here and tell you what it does.
I mean, even if I could do 2, it would be helpful. I mean, just to kind of give you an idea, this weekend I worked 2 overnight shifts. The 2 lieutenants and me are working on the floor. I mean, we don't have a choice. We just don't have the staff. So.
We have one consultant contract, right? With Bridgie, right? How many, we had some kind of a bailout clause in that, and honestly, okay, so we had 30 days. Do you know what's left in that contract to utilize?
I don't, but honestly, I don't know that I necessarily need her anymore. I think right now she's there as to help with the new build. That's kind of been at a standstill for so long, and
I believe it's a meeting a week. You know, if that could help us save money.
Yeah, well, I'm just thinking when you're talking about increasing some funding for additional staff that you need in the facility, I'm just wondering, I don't know what's left in the contract to pay out, but maybe with a 30-day clause, maybe we quit paying out on that contract if you feel you and your staff would be, I'm looking at something that's on a semi basis, you know, once a week, whatever, compared to on a daily basis of what you need on the floor.
Right.
It would make more sense to maybe end that contract, take those dollars that you need, put them maybe in 2023 to try to get more staff hired instead of spending that money on a contract. I guess that's one thing that I'm just wondering. And I don't know what the payment is or what.
It's $2,100 monthly, regardless if she works, it's just $2,100. And it wasn't something that was budgeted for, it was just something that was going to get covered in their budget, that they had funds in the budget to cover.
2,100 for a once a week meeting is pretty substantial. When we have to look at trying to fund some staff on the floor. I'm just making that comment.
So 3 employees would be what, 300,000?
Approximately. And she said she could do it with 200 if I put 200 in there. Exact number cash, we'd still be under the 60 million. It would be 59 point something. And we would be at 7.41 mil increase. So I had passed out 6.71, now it would be 7.41. That's only with 2 people. 3 people, we would be over the 16 mils if we didn't have cash to bring the mill up down.
Just one other thing to think about, if it doesn't get approved for 2024, likely when we move to the new facility, I'm definitely gonna need a minimum of 4 on, because we're gonna have the 2 separate ends, and so I have to have 2 staff located on each one. So it's inevitable, it's gonna have to happen at some point. So, matter of when. But definitely I look at the safety, and there's a lot of issues.
Then I have to add the retirement for your, how many officers that have attended the training then would you have in your department?
Right now, or if I had that?
Right now.
I have 16. Or I have 12 full time.
And that includes you and
Yeah.
Larry and.
Okay, so I have to add that to the 100,000 that I had for increasing the retirement of 1.78%.
Right.
I have to add 12 more officers.
There were some things in your budget that really dropped. I was just curious about it. One of them was health insurance.
Oh,
Okay.
she doesn't do that.
Huh?
We do that based on actual use in that department.
Oh,
So Colleen put in 10% because that was the average that we're given. It was, what was it? What was the range? No, I think it was up to 10 and we took the map. And we always do that. And last year we were also used 10 and it came in at 2. So
yeah,
that
okay,
helps
right,
us this
okay.
year
Sure.
because of that. And then we look at usage. Look at actual usage. So that's why she had a drop.
Okay. Then the attendant care dropped 33,000. What was the change there again?
Well, initially, we had that budget created to pay YouthWorks.
Yeah.
And so we don't pay anybody, we staff it now, so we don't necessarily need a budget for it.
I always like to see budget items go down. but-
Yeah.
I like to
Felt good.
understand why.
That one.
But then you see it in our hourly employees.
Yeah,
because
I
now
know.
they're doing that
Yeah.
program.
That's right. We understand what it is. You raised your
Yeah,
hand for a
I
question?
just had three things I would just, probably just for my clarification, the service agreements. Can you just expand on what those are? I see we've spent almost 10,000 in 2022, 8,500 in 2023, but the budget is 22,000.
Service agreements are probably, what are they? They're gonna be like my copy machine, I would imagine. The phone would probably fall under there, and internet and cable. I would imagine just like the things like that that you pay monthly on.
Small change.
And then furniture and equipment. That's, I mean, just to upgrade things or.
Yeah, if we need to, sometimes they like to destroy the furniture.
Anything else we need to know at this point? Commissioner Rusted, are you on? Maybe you can't hear it. Anybody else have other comments or questions? Nope. We are probably more engaged with you guys than we are with some of the other agencies who come in here, so we have a little better understanding of your needs, I think.
Yeah.
So I do have a question, and it's more of a philosophical question. Obviously, you do get some clients in that become unruly. So play it forward. Once your programs move to the county, our jail, if you're in a bind on your end of where your facility will be, can you look to the jail staff to help you for assistance? Okay, so having them consolidate a little bit will be advantageous,
Absolutely.
because then you could get some assistance if you need it when you are not, in crisis mode, right?
Yeah, that'll be very good.
Can you remind me again how many people are, like, how many beds are available for people to have and how many we usually have them?
So we have 16 total beds for detention. Right now we are at 9 kids up there. We have 6 beds for shelter care. And we currently have 2 kids in there. And then we have 6 beds for attendant care. And the shelter care rate went up, so it was $435, is it $396 a day per kid, and it is now $520 a day per kid. So that revenue is gonna go up also.
When does that take effect?
July 1st it is.
Oh, okay. Do you have kids in attendant care right now?
Shelter care. Yep, we have 2.
No, I know
Oh,
that.
we don't have any in attendant care right now.
But know how many?
Right, attendant care is really almost like a temporary babysitting service until their parents can pick them up, so they usually stay a day or less.
So the calendar year then runs July 1 to June 30th, the calendar year for the state.
Any other questions? Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. You too. We don't have like time before 4 o'clock.
No. But this is the tough one because.
It is
if
a
we
tough,
don't fund
it is a
couple
tough
of
one.
now,
We
may
didn't know
have
about it
next year.
prior to.
You know, I agree with Cynthia that $2,100 a month.
That's a lot of money. I was thinking about that. My God, if I was paying that out of my budget in my agency, I'd have fiscal all over me because they'd be like, what are you doing? And I don't know how much there's left in that service contract, but
It's every month. It's gonna be.
So is it
$2,100.
my understanding,
for the
she paid
rest of life.
$2,100 a month for one weekly meeting?
or 2 or maybe 3. I say we rescind that contract. And it sounds like Robin is competent enough to move forward, know what space is needed and stuff
So
like
does
that.
she need the action by the commission to
I'll make that motion today.
Yeah.
have to make.
I will gladly make
That's
that
a lot of
motion.
dollars
That's a
going
lot
out the
of money.
door for.
For a
A
meeting.
lot of money this year.
And Robin's had that conversation with Bob and me a few weeks ago, we met at one point and she mentioned that she felt like, yeah, I might be,
She's
I
ready.
think I'm more confident now that I can do this. So I think that,
So do you think we need, or she can make the motion without her saying make the motion?
Well,
I think,
I recall the last time the motion was brought forward was not from Robin, it was from Ms. Hanson. Bridgie made the motion and I was like, conflict of interest, you're not even.
But she did make the motion. I mean, I think a contract was made and you approved the contract. wasn't
Yeah,
it?
but Robin was not there.
That's what I mean,
And
Robin.
Bridgie brought the information forward, which was like, oh my God. So I don't know if we did something
I would-
illegal or not.
I mean, I would think that it could be under a committee report. It could be, somebody could, bring it forward.
Without her saying, yeah, she's ready.
Right.
For sure she is.
But there's a 30-day, right? You have to give a notice and it's
30,
it's
yeah.
done.
The other thing, I'm just asking, with the $147,000 to go to the 5%, with cost of living and picking up the remainder in 2024, because there are CARES dollars to support that, I would like to move forward on that motion under, say, HR committee report. $147,000 with 1.5 million, then we take out the sheriff stuff. I would feel confident that this is going to give some support from the employee association, from the rest of the employees, that we truly do mean what we say and we want to move forward.
So I
Just ask.
I have one question for the budget is, when Sheriff Schneider was here talking about, he wanted to retain that deputy that's covering for Kasmerchik.
No, that's adding on another
It's
person.
not in the budget and he's currently,
Didn't you?
No, I
Okay,
did not.
all right.
if Kaz comes back this month.
And he is, from what I understand. Like,
Well, there's confusion because the letter was dated July, the orders say September. So unless Andy has heard something specifically from Kaz, all the stuff we have shows September.
But there is
But-
somebody
But
going to,
even if he came back, if Kaz came back in the month of July, when they on board the new hire the 16th of August, and they've got, that position doesn't exist.
So yeah, he needs
Over.
to be told,
Yeah,
or he's going to have an extra person.
Right, so that's, yeah. Not my,
David, are you on?
it's there.
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay. We were just talking about Kasmerchik when he comes back.
Yes, sir.
That deputy that is filling in for him. In order to retain him, he's gonna have to fill one of the voids you already have for somebody coming in. When was
Right,
that?
right. That's correct, Commissioner Rost. It would be as soon as Kaz gets back, we'll be at 34 deputies. If Aiden hasn't started by then, we would be at 35 deputies. And I believe right now we're only allotted 34.
Okay. Just so you understand.
I understand the problem. Yes, it's been giving me fits all weekend.
Dave, do you guys have any updated information from Kaz? Because the letter we got with his orders was July of last year, dated July for the letter, but date of the orders said deployment in September and it was a 1-year deployment. So I didn't know if he's been in contact with you guys about that he'd be back in July, or if that was kind of an assumption based on the date of the letter.
So I've had a brief conversation with him. As you know, there's some USERRA concerns. So I haven't really pressured him on dates. The last thing I believe he told me is his military leave vacation that he's accrued would end sometime in the third week of August. So that would tell me that he would have to come back the third week of August, or he'd be unpaid from the county and unpaid from the military.
So the one piece of information you can ask him, and the piece that we would need to know as the employer, is the date his deployment would end. Because there's laws about from the date the deployment ends, the amount of time he has until he has to report back to his employer. So if you could just find out the date of his deployment ending, not his vacation, but his deployment.
Yep, that sounds good. I didn't want to pressure him too much. I know he's still outside of the continental United States, Oconus. So that brief conversation I had with him, I just didn't want to get into too many questions with him while he's still out over there.
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Moving across the hall.
Save Kids at It. I think.
Yeah, you mentioned that in your text.
Yeah.
Somebody's
So-
gonna